Amid the icy Alaskan wilderness, a young lynx cub named Kyle lay curled in the snow, his frail body reduced to skin and bones, his breathing so weak it was nearly fading away. Just as all hope seemed lost, Sarah, a wildlife rescue volunteer, appeared and wrestled his life back from the grip of death in a dramatic, heart-stopping rescue. Yet what truly makes this story feel unbelievable is not only Kale's miraculous recovery, but the sacred bond that formed between a wild predator and human compassion. What Kale did after he regained consciousness will leave you astonished, challenging everything we think we know about lynx instincts. Why would a warrior of the forest begin to purr affectionately like a house cat after enduring so much pain and trauma? Join me as we explore this deeply emotional journey and discover how love has the power to heal even the deepest scars of the soul. And before we begin, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any more extraordinary stories from the wild animal world. The snow was a merciless blanket, each flake a tiny knife on his already raw skin. He was Kyle, a bobcat kitten, though the name was merely a sound in the wind, a human invention he didn't yet understand. Right now he was just a small, shivering bundle of fur and bone, lost in an endless, white world. His mother's scent, a warm, comforting anchor, had vanished days ago, leaving behind only the biting cold and the gnawing ache in his belly. The last taste of milk was a distant memory, replaced by the bitter sting of ice on his tongue. He stumbled, his tiny paws, no bigger than walnuts, sinking deep into the drifts. A sharp pain lanced through his left hind leg with every step, a constant throb that pulsed in time with his ragged breaths. He let out a weak mewl, a sound swallowed instantly by the roaring wind. Could anyone hear? Or was his silent scream destined to fade into this desolate wilderness? He dragged himself forward, driven by an instinct he didn't comprehend. A primal urge to find shelter, warmth, anything to escape the relentless cold. His vision blurred, the world becoming a fuzzy watercolor of white and gray. The wind howled like a hungry wolf, each gust stealing more of his precious body heat. He remembered a den, a warm, soft space against his mother's belly, but that felt like a lifetime ago. Now there was only this unending, frozen expanse. He saw a shadowy shape in the distance, a gnarled tree trunk perhaps, or a cluster of rocks. Hope, a tiny flicker, ignited deep within him. He pushed harder, each muscle screaming in protest. His injured leg buckled, sending a fresh wave of agony through his small frame. He collapsed, his nose brushing against the icy powder. The warmth was leaving him, seeping away into the vast indifference of the snow. His breathing became shallower, each exhalation a barely perceptible mist. He tasted blood, a faint metallic tang from his chapped lips. He closed his eyes, the effort of keeping them open too great. He drifted, consciousness a fragile thread, snapping and reforming in the howling darkness. He felt nothing but the cold, a deep, pervasive cold that was beginning to feel like peace. This was it then. This was the end. His mother would be sad if she ever found him, but she was gone. He was alone. Then a new sensation, a rumble, not the wind, but something deep, vibrating through the ground. A bright light pierced his eyelids, even through the haze of unconsciousness. He felt a disturbance, a massive shadow falling over him. Fear, sharp and primal, jolted him, but he was too weak to move, too weak to flee. A scent, strong and unfamiliar, filled his nostrils. Not prey, not predator, but something else. Something warm? He felt a gentle nudge, then another, and a massive hand, gloved and strangely soft, scooped him up. He was jostled, lifted from the icy embrace of the snow. Panic tried to resurface, but the sheer exhaustion held it back. He was bundled, cradled against a warmth he hadn't felt in days. The roaring wind was muffled, replaced by a low, rhythmic hum. The sting in his leg was still there, a dull ache now, but the pervasive cold began to recede. He felt a slight pinch on his leg, a brief, sharp discomfort, followed by a rush of something warm, then a soft wrap around the wound. He tried to protest, to twist away, but he was held securely, gently. A new smell now, clean and vaguely medicinal, mixed with the human scent. He felt a drop of liquid on his tongue, cool and sweet, chasing away the bitter taste. He lapped weakly, instinctively. It was water, clean and life-giving. The warmth deepened, spreading through his tiny body, thawing the ice from his bones. He was still scared, still confused, but another sensation, tentative and fragile, began to bloom. Relief. These giants, with their strange rumbling and their terrifying light, were not here to hurt him. The whispers of winter, which had promised only death, were finally being drowned out by a different kind of sound. The quiet hum of rescue and the promise of a future he couldn't yet imagine. The cold was a constant, gnawing presence, a deep ache in bones and a shiver that never ceased. He'd known it for what felt like an eternity, a biting clarity after the confusing, terrifying flashes of pain and noise. Now the world was a blurred canvas of white and gray, and his own small body felt like a stone, heavy and unyielding. Each breath was a shallow rasp, tasting of frost and the metallic tang of fear. Just when the final curtain of numbness seemed poised to descend, just when the last flicker of warmth threatened to gutter out, a new scent, alien and sharp, pierced the icy air. It wasn't the scent of prey, nor the comforting, if distant, musk of his kind. It was something large, unnervingly large. A shadow fell over him, vast and sudden, plunging his already dim world into near darkness. He tried to shrink, to make himself smaller than he already was, to melt into the frozen earth. His muscles, stiff and protesting, barely responded. A low sound, soft and rumbling, vibrated through the ground. Not a growl, but something inquisitive. Then a new smell, sweet and strange, like crushed leaves and something artificial. He squeezed his eyes shut, wishing for the earth to swallow him whole. The warmth had been a myth, a forgotten dream from another life. All there was now was the bone-deep cold, the vast, terrifying shadow, and the scent of the unknown. He was prey, he knew that much, though he hadn't felt strong enough to hunt in days. Was this the end then? A giant maw, unseen, silent, but undoubtedly there? A gloved hand, immense and slow-moving, entered his field of vision. It was covered in something thick and dark, like bark but smoother. He flattened himself, a desperate, instinctual prayer to invisibility. He could feel the vibrations of the giant's movements, the heavy thud of its feet on the frozen ground. The hand extended, slowly, cautiously, not grabbing, not pouncing. It hovered, a silent, unblinking sentinel. He let out a tiny, involuntary hiss, the sound ragged and weak, a pathetic defiance against the inevitable. The hand paused, then retreated a fraction. Then another sound, soft and melodic, like the murmur of the wind through dry grass. It wasn't threatening, it was cajoling, confusing. He felt a different kind of warmth then, not the internal dying embers, but an external encroaching heat. It was gentle, almost a caress, as the giant's fingers, surprisingly soft, brushed against his matted fur. A jolt of panic, pure and primal, shot through him. He thrashed, a futile struggle against the unseen grip. But the touch remained, firm but not crushing. He was lifted effortlessly into the air. The world spun, a dizzying kaleidoscope of white and gray, before settling into the confines of a dark, enclosed space. It smelled of the giant, but also of something clean, and something else. A faint, sweet smell that was oddly comforting. He was trembling, not just from the cold now, but from sheer terror. This was it. The end. He felt movement, a gentle sway, and the low rumble returned, closer now, a steady vibration that permeated the box he was in. He tried to orient himself, to find an escape, but the darkness was absolute. Then a new sensation, a sudden, overwhelming warmth that enveloped him. It was soft like a cloud, and instantly, miraculously, it began to seep into his frozen limbs, chasing away the deep ache. He instinctively burrowed into it, a creature of instinct drawn to the promise of comfort, even as his mind screamed caution. This was a trap. It had to be, but the warmth was a forgotten luxury. The movement stopped. More sounds, clanking and murmuring, filled the air. Then the lid of his dark sanctuary was lifted, and blinding light assaulted his sensitive eyes. He squinted, his pupils contracting against the sudden glare. He was in a strange, brightly lit room on a smooth, cold surface. Another giant, different from the first, but equally immense, hovered over him. This one wore different scents, sharper, cleaner, with a hint of something metallic. A new hand, this one bare, approached him. It held a small, shiny needle. He recoiled, a deep, guttural growl escaping him, a sound he hadn't known he still possessed. Pain, he knew pain. This small, sharp object promised it, and it came. A quick, stinging jab in his flank, a flash of fire that made him yelp. But then, almost immediately, a strange lethargy began to spread through him, dulling the sharp edges of his fear. The giant's touch, though still intimidating, became less threatening, softer. He felt himself being lifted again, gently placed on a warm, soft pad. A voice, the same gentle murmur from before, spoke above him. He couldn't understand the sounds, but the tone was soothing. It's almost like the rustle of leaves on a calm day. A small dish appeared, filled with a clear liquid. Water. Real water. He hadn't tasted it in days, only snow in the icy air. He lapped at it cautiously, the sensation of it cool and clean on his parched tongue a revelation. It wasn't a trap, not yet at least. He felt a different kind of hunger now, not the desperate gnawing in his belly, but a soft, aching need for the warmth, the water, the strange, careful touches. The sharp taste of the needle pain was fading, replaced by a dull ache and a pervasive sense of relaxation he hadn't known was possible. The giant, Sarah, remained. Her hand now ungloved moved slowly, deliberately, smoothing his matted fur, checking his ears, his tiny bony frame. He flinched at first, remembering other, rougher hands, but her touch was consistently gentle, almost reverent. He felt his eyelids grow heavy. The fear was still there, a faint echo in his instincts, but the overwhelming presence of warmth and safety was slowly, steadily eclipsing it. He was no longer just a frozen, starving creature. He was something else. He was being saved. The world was a maelstrom of terror. A giant, a monstrously large shadow loomed over him, its scent alien and cloying. Every nerve ending screamed, a symphony of pain from his battered body. He flattened himself against the cold, hard ground, a tiny, trembling ball of matted gray fur. His ears, still ringing from the harsh sounds of the street, swiveled wildly, trying to pinpoint the source of this new threat. He knew pain. He knew hunger. He knew the biting cold and the sharp teeth of other creatures. But this was different. This giant made soft, rumbling noises, not snarls. Yet its shadow was immense, encompassing. He hissed, a pathetic, reedy sound that barely rippled the air. It was a warning, a desperate plea for the giant to back away. His claws, though tiny and dull, extended, ready to tear at anything that came too close. A wave of nausea washed over him, a familiar feeling that had been his constant companion for days. He was so tired, but the instinct to survive, a fierce, primal spark, flared within him. The giant moved closer, its soft rumble growing louder. He swiped blindly, connecting with nothing but air. Panic surged, a hot, suffocating tide. He needed to run, to hide, but his legs felt like lead, trembling uncontrollably. Sarah knelt, her movements slow and deliberate, her voice a low, soothing murmur. "Hey there, little one. It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." She understood the hiss, the terrified flinch. She'd seen it 1,000 times. This tiny creature, no bigger than her hand, was a walking wound, a testament to cruelty and neglect. His matted fur, his rheumy eyes, the way he held one tiny paw slightly aloft, all screamed pain. She extended her hand slowly, palm up, revealing nothing threatening. Her years of experience had taught her that patience was the most powerful tool in her arsenal, especially with fear-stricken animals. She imagined the world through his eyes, a terrifying, towering being full of unknown intentions. A new sensation, a warm softness gently wrapping around him. He struggled, thrashing wildly, but the softness tightened, a gentle embrace rather than a painful grip. It smelled of something clean, something that wasn't the stench of the alley or the fear of his own body. He felt himself lifted, his tiny body suspended in the air. Terror, a cold claw, squeezed his heart. He whimpered, a sound he hadn't made in what felt like an eternity. He was trapped, but then a strange warmth spread through him, a comforting heat that began to soothe the aches in his bones. The giant's rumbling continued, a low vibration against his tiny chest. It wasn't angry. It wasn't threatening. It was calming. Sarah gently swaddled the kitten, his frail body barely a handful. His frantic struggles slowly subsided, replaced by a tremor that still shook his tiny frame. She felt his heart racing, a frantic flutter against her palm. "You're okay, little guy," she whispered, her voice husky with emotion. "You're safe now." As she began to carry him towards her waiting car, she felt a sudden, alarming change. The frantic beat in his chest faltered. It slowed. Alarm bells blared in her mind. He was going into shock, cardiac arrest, a jolt, a sudden rhythmic pressure on his chest. It was firm but not painful. It startled him, making him gasp. His vision swam, a kaleidoscope of dark and light. He felt himself being jostled, then a strange rhythmic pressing, again and again. His heart, which had felt like a dying ember, now pulsed with a faint, unfamiliar rhythm. It was a struggle, a battle for every breath, but the warmth of the blanket and the steady pressure from the giant's hand were anchors in the storm. He was still terrified, but a tiny part of him, a deeply buried instinct, recognized a struggle for him, not against him. Sarah's hands worked with practiced precision, her movements fluid and urgent. Gentle chest compressions, 2 fingers pressing rhythmically, a desperate plea to the tiny heart to keep beating. She didn't break stride, one hand supporting the swaddled kitten, the other performing the life-saving compressions as she rushed towards the clinic doors. Every second counted. "Hang on, little one, just a little further." His breathing was shallow, ragged, but there was still a spark. The world outside was a blur, but her focus was absolute, honed by years of facing such fragile lives. The smells changed, a sharp medicinal scent, utterly different from the street or even the giant's hand. He was placed on a cold, hard surface, but the blanket remained a comforting barrier. More giants appeared, their voices hushed, their movements quick. A tiny prick, a sharp sting on his leg. He cried out, a small, pained yelp. But almost immediately, a warmth spread through him, a subtle easing of the terrible aches. A soft, wet cloth dabbed at his face, gently cleaning away the crust around his eye. He felt himself drifting, the terror slowly receding, replaced by a profound exhaustion. He was so tired, but for the first time in what felt like forever, the exhaustion felt like a promise of rest, not a precursor to death. The world was a kaleidoscope of pain, shifting from icy numbness to a searing ache, then back again. A thrumming vibration beneath him, a jarring sway, then the sudden, terrifying lurch to stillness. He was trapped, compressed, the air thick with unfamiliar scents, antiseptic, something metallic, and the overpowering musk of other creatures. 2-legged giants who loomed, murmuring in low, guttural tones. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced through the haze of agony. This was not the familiar, bitter wind of the mountains, nor the biting hunger he'd grown accustomed to. This was new and terrifying. A giant's hand, huge and surprisingly soft, stroked the matted fur on his back. A jolt of panic, a guttural growl that felt weak and raspy, barely a whisper. He tried to twist away, to bite, but his body felt heavy, unresponsive, a sack of broken bones and throbbing flesh. The pain in his leg, a deep, burning throb, flared with the effort. Then a sharp prick, a sudden sting, followed by a strange, creeping warmth spreading through his veins, easing the tension, softening the edges of the world. The giants continued their murmuring, their movements slow and deliberate. No sudden grabs, no harsh noises. A blanket, smelling of clean linen and something faintly sweet, was draped over him, tucking him in. A strange, unfamiliar comfort against the cold steel beneath. He remembered the endless nights, the gnawing hunger, the relentless cold that seeped into his bones. The crushing impact, the blinding flash of light, and then the dragging, agonizing crawl away from the danger, leaving a trail of dark, sticky warmth behind him. He remembered the desperate thirst, the metallic tang of snow that barely quenched it. Now a different sensation. A thin, flexible tube slid into his mouth, delivering a cool, tasteless liquid. It wasn't the muddy puddle water he'd tried to lap, nor the blood of a small, fleeing creature. It was clean, it was pure, and it flowed, slowly but steadily, into his parched throat, a tiny ripple of relief in the vast ocean of his suffering. His body, starved and dehydrated, drank it in eagerly. The giants moved around him, a ballet of efficiency. He felt more needles, a dull pressure in his flank, followed by a rush of heat, then a numbing sensation in his leg. They were examining the wound, the terrible gash that had pulsed with fire for days. A strange, cool liquid was poured over it, then a gentle scrubbing, removing the caked dirt and gristle. It stung, fiercely at first, making him flinch. A low growl rumbling in his chest. But then as they continued, a bizarre sense of relief followed, the pain becoming less sharp, more distant. He felt something soft being applied, then a tight wrapping. The ache was still there, a constant companion, but it was muted, bearable. These giants, despite their size and strange smell, were not bringing more pain. They were lessening it. A new thought, fragile and tentative, began to form in his muddled mind. Perhaps they were not enemies. Then a sudden shift in the giant's demeanor. Their murmurs grew faster, more urgent. He felt a different kind of probing, deeper, more intrusive, not just on the surface, but within him. A cold metallic circle pressed against his chest, listening to the frantic drum of his heart. Another giant, with spectacles perched on his nose and hands that felt strangely knowing, spoke in a hushed, grave tone. He couldn't understand the words, but the inflection, the sudden tension in the air, spoke volumes. Something new was wrong, something deeper. A fresh wave of fear, cold and internal, swept through him, overshadowing even the leg wound. He sensed it, a dark, virulent presence within his own body, a deeper betrayal. The giants were staring at him, their faces grim, their movements more hesitant, yet still purposeful. There was a low hum, a gentle nudge, and then, slowly, the world began to soften, to blur, as another needle brought a different kind of oblivion. This time, it felt less like fear and more like a necessary surrender. Who knew a gentle house cat could hold the key to a wild animal's recovery? The world was a blur of dizzying fear and unfamiliar smells, sharp and metallic, then sweet and cloying. Blaze the bobcat kitten had been pulled from a dark, echoing void, thrust into a sudden cacophony of giant voices and looming shadows. His small body thrummed with a primal terror, a deep-seated instinct to flee, to hide, to lash out. The sting on his flank, followed by a heavy drowsiness, had been a betrayal, a loss of control. He fought even as his limbs went limp. He'd woken to a throbbing ache in his leg, a tight bandage, a constant, unfamiliar pressure. His attempts to bite at it were met with gentle but firm resistance from the giants who moved around him, their hands warm, sometimes smelling of antiseptic, sometimes of something sweet and meaty. The soft blanket they'd provided was warm, but it felt wrong, too soft, too safe, and therefore suspicious. Every rustle outside his enclosure, every distant voice, sent a fresh wave of adrenaline through him. His small fangs were bared often, a low hiss rumbling in his chest, a desperate warning to anything that dared approach. The food they offered, strange mush and small bits of meat, was consumed only when the giants were gone, out of sight, and then with a ravenous hunger that spoke of days of emptiness. But even then, the hunger was mixed with a gnawing suspicion. Why were they feeding him? What did they want? The memory of the loud noises, the sharp pain, the crushing grip of being caught. It was all a jumbled, terrifying memory loop. Sarah, the gentlest of the giants, named him Blaze. The sound of it was soft, a warm whisper, but to Blaze, the bobcat kitten, it was just another unfamiliar noise in a world full of them. His recovery, physically, was progressing, but his spirit remained a clenched, trembling knot of fear and aggression. He was isolated as per protocol to minimize stress and prevent the spread of any potential illnesses. Yet his wildness, the untamed spirit of the forest, remained fiercely intact, a flickering ember of resistance. Sarah, her brow furrowed with concern, watched him from a distance, her quiet hums doing little to soothe his raw nerves. She knew this was a critical phase. He needed more than just physical healing. He needed to learn that not all hands brought pain, not all giants were threats. It was then a desperate thought sparked by an old memory that she considered her wise old house cat, Mittens. Mittens, a stately calico with a soft purr and an endless well of maternal instinct, had raised countless abandoned kittens, even a stray rabbit once. It was a long shot, a crazy gamble, but what if a familiar, non-threatening feline presence could reach Blaze in a way humans couldn't? Mittens was carried in, a soft weight in Sarah's arms, then gently placed on the floor a few feet from Blaze's enclosure. Blaze, still wary, flattened himself against the back of his cage, a tiny, vibrating ball of fury. He watched the new creature, this smaller giant, move with a cautious intensity. Mittens, however, displayed no aggression, no fear. Her tail swayed with a gentle, almost a lazy rhythm. Her green eyes, large and unblinking, simply observed Blaze. There was no challenging growl, no territorial hiss, just a quiet, curious assessment. Slowly, deliberately, Mittens began to approach the enclosure. Each paw placement was soft, unhurried. Blaze watched, mesmerized by her lack of menace, a tiny crack forming in the wall of his fear. He'd braced himself for a charge, a snarl, anything he understood from the wild. But Mittens just continued her slow advance until she was right up against the wire mesh, her nose almost touching the bars. She let out a soft, questioning trill, a sound utterly unlike the harsh barks and growls Blaze associated with danger. Then an impossible thing happened. Against all odds, Mittens, with a move so gentle it took Sarah's breath away, extended a paw through the bars. Not to strike, not to threaten, but to touch. Blaze flinched, instinctively recoiling, his small body tensing for impact. But Mittens' paw landed not with a blow, but with a feather-light brush against his matted fur. And then, slowly, rhythmically, Mittens began to groom Blaze through the bars. Her rough tongue, usually reserved for her own fur, meticulously simulated the motions of a mother cat cleaning her kitten. She licked at the air just beyond his fur, her whiskers twitching, her eyes half closed in a display of pure, unadulterated maternal instinct. The effect was instantaneous and profound. Blaze, the wild kitten who had hissed and spat at every human touch, froze. His eyes, initially wide with alarm, slowly, imperceptibly, began to soften. The incessant tremor in his small body eased. It was a primal comfort, a memory perhaps of a mother he'd lost too soon, a touch he'd been denied in the brutal wilderness. He leaned ever so slightly into the invisible caress, a fragile trust beginning to bloom in the hardened soil of his fear. Sarah, watching the scene unfold, felt tears well in her eyes. It was a miracle, a testament to the universal language of care and the unlikely guardian who had just opened the door to Blaze's heart. The scent was all wrong, too sharp, too clean. Not the familiar musty earth or the acrid tang of fear that had been his constant companion for so long. Blaze, the bobcat kitten, a bundle of raw nerves and matted fur, huddled deeper into the soft, unfamiliar blanket. His tiny muscles ached, not just from the lingering phantom pains of the snare, but from the sheer exhaustion of perpetual vigilance. Every rustle, every distant voice of the giant creatures who had scooped him from the cold became a threat. He tried to hiss, a pathetic puff of air, but even that felt too much. He just wanted to disappear. Then came a new scent, soft, round, utterly alien, not predator, not prey, not even human. It was warm. A quiet, persistent purr vibrated through the air, a sound he had never known, yet felt strangely compelling. He kept his eyes squeezed shut, but the presence was undeniable, a gentle pressure against the fabric of his makeshift nest. A paw, so much smaller and softer than his own, tentatively touched his back. It didn't grab, didn't scratch, didn't threaten. It merely rested. Mittens, the house cat, a creature of soft curves and quiet contentment, moved with deliberate slowness. Her instincts, honed by generations of domesticity, still held a primal echo. This small, struggling thing, emanating a faint, desperate fear scent, needed her. She had seen the giants fuss over him, heard the soft, worried murmurs. She recognized the fragility, the deep, aching need for comfort. She nudged closer, her pristine white fur a stark contrast to the Bobcat Kitten's wild spots. Her purr, a rumble of pure solace, deepened, vibrating through the small, controlled environment of the recovery area. She began to lick, a slow rhythmic motion that started at his shoulder, avoiding the tiny bandage, and moved upwards towards his head. Her rough tongue, a surprising caress, smoothed a patch of his matted fur. Blaze flinched, a residual tremor of fear, but the touch was persistent, gentle. It was so unlike the rough push and pull of his mother or the sharp nip of a sibling. This was a sustained, comforting rhythm. He stopped tensing, a fraction of his fear melting away with each soft, deliberate stroke. The warm weight of her body against his back was a novelty, a safe shield. He hadn't realized how cold he'd been, not truly, until this radiating warmth settled against him. He felt his own ragged breathing begin to even out, the frantic drum of his heart slowing. He was still wary, his ears swiveling, but the immediate threat perception dulled, replaced by the insistent, lulling sound of her purr. Days passed in a blur of careful handling by the towering humans, who now smelled less terrifyingly sterile and more like soft blankets in gentle hands. There were strange, brief pinpricks, he hated those, followed by a wave of something warm and calming that flowed through him, dulling the sharp edge of his hunger. But the ultimate relief came when Mittens was allowed back in. She would curl up beside him, a soft, purring guardian. He had been stubborn, refusing the strange, rubbery nipple offered by the giants. The scent was wrong, the feel alien. He would turn his head away, his tiny belly aching, but his wild instincts screamed caution. He remembered the desperate scramble for milk from his own mother, the strong, familiar scent of her. This artificial offering felt like a trick, but then one of the giants, with a soft, persistent voice, placed the bottle right beside Mittens. Mittens, ever attuned, nudged it gently with her nose, then looked at Blaze with her calm green eyes as if to say, "It's safe now." And just like that, with the comforting weight of Mittens pressed against him, her constant purr a soothing rhythm in his ears, a strange, undeniable security settled over him. He felt a profound shift, the deep-seated wariness finally giving way to a desperate, primal hunger. Tentatively, he turned his head. His tiny nose brushed against the rubber. He could feel the warmth of the milk, with Mittens a soft, reassuring anchor beside him. Creating a cocoon of safety, he latched on. The taste was unexpected, rich and sweet, a foreign yet profoundly comforting sensation that flooded his small body with a relief so immense it brought a strange, almost dizzying lightness. The giants cooed softly, their voices now sounding like the gentlest of murmurs, and for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, Blaze nursed, feeling the life-giving liquid fill his empty belly, a bond of trust forged not by human hands but by the quiet, unwavering presence of a house cat. The raw, ragged edges of the wild began to fray the comfortable cocoon Blaze the bobcat had settled into. The ache in his leg, once a searing constant, was now a dull throb, a forgotten whisper under the hum of growing strength. But with that strength came something else, something primal and insistent, stirring deep within his bones. The soft bade, the easy food, the gentle giants, they were nice. But the world outside, the world of scent and shadow, of pursuit and capture, tugged at him. He'd start to pace, not with the frantic desperation of fear, but with a restless energy, a coiled readiness. The tiny plush mouse, once a gentle companion, now became prey. He'd stalk it, low to the ground, his body a ripple of muscle, then pounce with a sudden, explosive burst that surprised even himself. His claws, sheathed for so long, would extend, not to hurt, but to pin, to hold, to feel the satisfying resistance of the toy. Mittens, the house cat, would watch him with an unreadable gaze, her own domestic serenity undisturbed, yet always present a warm, purring anchor in his burgeoning wildness. Yet after these bursts of instinct, a strange emptiness would follow. The thrill of the chase would fade, leaving a faint tremor, a bewildered longing. He'd look for Mittens then, drawn to her familiar warmth. He'd rub against her, a soft, rumbling purr vibrating in his chest, seeking that soothing presence. Her calm acceptance, the gentle brush of her fur, was a balm to the growing confusion within him. He was a creature of two worlds now, one calling to him with an ancient, irresistible song, the other holding him with gentle, comforting ties. The big humans, these towering sources of warmth and food, they had saved him, brought him back from the brink of that cold, starving world. He remembered the sharp sting of the needle, then the heavy, dreamless sleep, followed by the blessed absence of gnawing pain. He remembered the taste of the cool, clean water, how it had flowed down his parched throat, dissolving the gritty dust of his past. He tested his weight on the mended leg more and more, each step feeling stronger, more assured. He'd jump onto the low perches the humans had built, feeling the spring in his muscles, the renewed coordination. The world was his to explore, his to conquer, even within the confines of this strange, safe place. He was fast. He was strong. The scent of the outside, carried on the air through the open window, became an intoxicating promise, a primal drumbeat echoing in his ears. The giant humans, at first terrifying shadows, now brought trays of delicious raw meat, their voices low and soothing, their hands gentle when they tended to his wound. He had learned their routines, the soft jingle of keys, the rhythmic creak of the door, the soft thud of their approach. They meant safety, nourishment, a haven. Then one morning, after a particularly vigorous session of pouncing and mock-hunting his toy, a faint twinge returned to his leg. It wasn't the searing agony of before, but a dull, insistent ache. When one of the giants came with a soft cloth in the soothing salve, a small, dark stain bloomed on the white bandage, a drop of fresh blood, a tiny tear in the carefully mended flesh. The giant made a soft, worried sound, a low rumble that resonated with Blaze's own sudden anxiety. He pulled back slightly, a flicker of that old fear returning. The scent of antiseptic, once a sign of relief, now carried a hint of uncertainty. Had he pushed too hard? Had his own wildness betrayed him? The soft bed suddenly felt less comforting, the enclosure walls more confining. The conflict was sharp, undeniable, the burning urge to be wild, unfettered, in the fragile reality of his healing body. The wound, a tiny red dot, was a stark reminder of the delicate balance he had yet to master. The air in the den had begun to hum with a strange tension, a scent that Mittens, the house cat, recognized as change, even if he couldn't articulate why. The big orange and black cat, Blaze, his wild cousin, was almost whole again. His fur, once ragged and dull, now shone with the vibrant, earthy tones of a sunset through the trees. The limp in his hind leg was barely perceptible, a ghost of the sharp, throbbing pain that had once consumed him. Mittens remembered the raw fear in Blaze's eyes when those giant humans first surrounded him, their voices rumbling like distant thunder. He remembered the swift, bewildering prick of a needle, the world spinning, then the soft, warm blanket. For Blaze, the world had slowly reconfigured itself from a place of constant threat to one of gentle predictability. The giants, once terrifying in their sheer size and booming sounds, had become providers. Food appeared, clean water materialized in smooth bowls, and soft beds welcomed him. He'd learned to distinguish the rustle of a food bag from the click of a latch that meant a gentle inspection. Though small, striped cat, Mittens, had been a constant, non-threatening presence, a silent observer from a safe distance. His purr a quiet rhythm that soothed something deep within Blaze's wild heart. It was a bizarre, unexpected camaraderie, a bridge built between two worlds. Sarah felt the weight of it all pressing down on her, a physical ache in her chest. Blaze the bobcat was magnificent. He was lean, powerful, and intelligent. His eyes, once clouded with pain and suspicion, now sharp and inquisitive. He trusted them as much as a wild animal could trust a human. He even tolerated Mittens, who often sat outside his enclosure, watching with an intensity that bordered on adoration. But the painful truth, the one that kept Sarah awake at night, was this. Love, true love for an animal like Blaze, meant letting go. And how do you let go of a bond that felt so profoundly special, so hard-won? The rescue center, usually a bustling hub of focused activity, felt heavy with unspoken concerns. Dr. Evan Henderson, the lead vet, had delivered the news during their morning meeting, his voice grave. Blaze is almost fully recovered. His leg is stable, his weight is good, his instincts are sharp. He paused, looking around at the gathered faces. Sarah, Mark, the handful of dedicated volunteers. But we can't keep a bobcat here. It's not ethical. It's not safe for him or for us. He's a wild animal. The words hung in the air, cold and stark. The alternative, releasing him into the wild without his mother, without the crucial lessons of survival, was a death sentence. He was a juvenile, still too young to truly fend for himself against seasoned predators or find territory. Mittens, from his perch on a high shelf near the meeting room, felt the vibrations of the giant's distress. Their voices were low, their movements slower, their scent tinged with a new sadness. He didn't understand words, but he understood emotion. He understood the way Sarah's hand would tremble when she stroked his fur, the way her eyes would linger on Blaze. It was the same feeling he'd felt when he'd been found, small and starving, and then brought to this place of warmth and safety. He knew, instinctively, that something precious was at stake. The crucial meeting came 2 days later. The Rescue Center's board members were present, along with a representative from a national wildlife organization. Sarah sat rigidly, Mittens curled tightly on her lap, his purr a frantic vibration against her. The air crackled with a sterile formality that felt alien to the usual animal-filled chaos. The woman from the wildlife organization, Dr. Anya Sharma, spoke with a quiet authority. We've been consulting with several sanctuaries. Given Blaze's unique situation, a juvenile bobcat, orphaned but successfully rehabilitated by humans, there's only one viable option for his long-term well-being and eventual release. Wildhaven Sanctuary, she continued, her voice gentle but firm, and they specialize in bobcat rehabilitation for release. They have a vast, multi-acre naturalistic enclosure, minimal human interaction, and a proven track record of teaching juveniles the necessary hunting and survival skills to thrive in the wild. It's the best, safest path to a true wild future for Blaze. The words were logical, necessary, and utterly heartbreaking. The thought of separation, of Blaze being taken to a place where Sarah wouldn't be able to check on him, where Mittens wouldn't be able to sit and watch his powerful movements, felt like a physical tearing. Mittens felt Sarah's chest tighten beneath his paws, a deep tremor running through her. He pressed closer, instinctively offering what comfort he could. The metallic tang of the early morning air was different. Mittens, the house cat, felt it first. A subtle shift in the rhythm of the giant's movements, a tension in their usually comforting scent. It was the scent of change, of impending separation, and it settled deep in her small domestic heart. She pushed her head against Blaze the bobcat's flank, the rough texture of the wildcat's fur a familiar comfort against her own sleek coat. Blaze, still mostly a blur of instinct and healing, twitched an ear, a low rumble vibrating in its chest. For weeks, Mittens had been the anchor in this strange, loud world, a constant, purring presence that spoke of warmth and safety. Today, her silent lesson of strength and independence would find its ultimate test. Mittens continued her diligent work, running her tongue over the wildcat's already clean fur. It was more than grooming. It was a ritual, a silent communication of belonging and love. Blaze closed its eyes, leaning into the pressure, the small, insistent licks, a soothing balm against the nervous energy that buzzed beneath its skin. The world of the giants had been confusing at first. Towering shadows, strange smells, the sharp sting of needles followed by the delicious relief of warmth and soft blankets. Sarah, the biggest and kindest of the giants, had been a steady presence, her touch gentle, her voice a low, comforting hum. But even Sarah carried a scent of sadness today. Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she secured the last latch on the transport crate. Her throat felt tight, a familiar ache blooming in her chest. Letting go was never easy, even when it was the right thing to do. She glanced at Mittens, who now sat nose to nose with Blaze, their eyes locked in an unspoken dialogue. It was extraordinary, this bond that had formed between two creatures so fundamentally different. Mittens nudged Blaze's head, a soft, almost imperceptible press, conveying a universe of comfort and farewell in that single gesture. Blaze blinked slowly, then returned the gesture, a low headbutt against Mittens' forehead. It was a language without words, understood only by the two of them. Blaze had learned to trust, not just the giants, but the smaller, braver creature who had shown it how. The time came. Sarah approached Blaze, her movements slow, deliberate, her voice a soft murmur of reassurance. Blaze, for its part, didn't cower. It didn't lash out. It met her gaze, a flicker of its old wildness still present, but tempered by the weeks of gentle care, the endless bowls of clean water and nourishing food that had replaced the gnawing hunger. The fear was still there, a thin thread, but stronger now was the nascent trust. It remembered the taste of the warm, fleshy morsel from Sarah's hand, the soft scratch behind the ears that had replaced the burning itch of parasites. It was a strange dance between predator and caregiver, a testament to rehabilitation. As Sarah moved to guide Blaze towards the open door of the transport crate, a low growl rumbled in Blaze's chest, a sound of instinctual resistance, but it was quickly overridden by another sensation. Mittens weaving between Sarah's legs, rubbing against Blaze's side one last time. It was a reminder, a reinforcing of the new truth. Safety was here, even in the unknown. Blaze hesitated, glancing back at Mittens, then at the dark opening of the crate. The enclosure felt small, confined, a memory of past entrapment stirring, but this time it was different. This time there was the scent of Sarah, of Mittens, of clean blankets. Just as Blaze was about to be gently nudged into the transport crate, Mittens let out a plaintive meow. It wasn't a demand or an angry protest. It was a sound of pure sorrow, a mournful lament that seemed to reverberate in the very air of the clinic. It was a sound that made Sarah's own heart ache, a raw, undeniable expression of a mother's farewell. Blaze, caught mid-step, froze, turning its head sharply toward the small house cat. For a long moment, the world held its breath. Then, with a hesitant, almost imperceptible nod, Blaze stepped into the crate, the metallic click of the latch echoing in the sudden silence. The world was vast, a dizzying explosion of scents and sounds. Blaze, once known as Mittens, had truly found his wild heart, though echoes of a different life still hummed beneath his fur. The harsh clinic lights were long gone, replaced by the dappled sunlight filtering through ancient oaks, and the metallic tang of antiseptic by the rich perfume of damp earth and pine needles. He was a hunter now, every twitch of his ear, every silent stride, a testament to the wildness that had always resided within him, even when he'd been a fragile kitten trembling in the vast, confusing hands of giants. Yet sometimes when the wind carried a particular scent or a patch of sunlight warmed his fur just so, a flicker of memory would cross his amber eyes. A soft bed, a gentle touch, a different kind of warmth. The sanctuary was enormous, stretching further than his keen sight could encompass. A boundless kingdom where the rustle of leaves was a constant symphony and the scent of prey a constant, thrilling promise. Other bobcats moved through this landscape, shadows among shadows, sometimes glimpsed, sometimes just a faint musk on the wind. Initially, their presence was a puzzle, then a challenge, and finally a comfortable, if distant, companionship. He learned their ways, the subtle language of flicks of tails and flattened ears, the delicate dance of territory and respect. He hunted, first with clumsy, frantic eagerness, then with the patient, calculating precision of his kind. The crunch of dry leaves underfoot, the scent of a vole's burrow, the thrill of the chase, these were the new rhythms of his life. A life reclaimed. But there were quirks, strange little habits that lingered like faint whispers of a dream. When he settled down to sleep, usually high on a sturdy branch or tucked into a dense thicket, he wouldn't sprawl like the other bobcats. Instead, he'd curl himself into an impossibly tight ball, tucking his head almost completely under his body, his tail wrapped around his nose, a posture that spoke of a desperate need for smallness, for enclosure, for the forgotten comfort of a human lap. It was a habit from another life, a deep-seated instinct to make himself smaller, safer when the world outside had been too big, too loud, and the grooming. Oh, the grooming! He was fastidious, of course, as all healthy felines were, but his licks were often punctuated by a strange, almost methodical tenderness, an absent-minded tracing of his paws over his chest, a prolonged smoothing of his whiskers. It wasn't the quick, efficient cleaning of a wild cat. It was softer, gentler, as if he were trying to replicate a lost sensation, a memory of a smaller, cleaner body pressing against his, the rhythmic rumble of another, larger cat's purr. It was a phantom limb of comfort, a lingering echo of a bond that transcended species. Sometimes he would simply sit, not hunting, not watching for other bobcats, but gazing into the middle distance, his eyes wide and unblinking, as if seeing something beyond the dense canopy and the distant hills. What did he see? A small dark room? A large, soft hand? A bowl of water, cool and clear after days of parching thirst? Or perhaps the towering figures of the giants who had brought him here, confusing and frightening at first, then steadying, comforting, their hands surprisingly gentle, even when they held the sting of a needle or the cold pressure of a clamp. The memory of the pain, the disorientation had faded, replaced by the deep, animal understanding of care, of trust. And then there was the sound. It wasn't always there, not like the chirps and chuffs of other bobcats, but sometimes, especially after a particularly satisfying meal, or when the sun warmed a special spot, a strange low vibration would ripple through his chest. It started as a faint tremor, almost imperceptible, then grew into a rumbling purr, deep and resonant, utterly alien to his wild lineage. It was the sound of a house cat, of a kitten, of mittens curled up against a warm body, a gentle, comforting presence. It was the purr he had learned, the one he had shared, a faint echo of Mittens's forgotten warmth, a testament to a life once lived, still humming softly in the fierce heart of Blaze the bobcat. It was his unique song, a secret whisper between the wild and the tamed, a bridge built of memory and instinct. The years had stretched, long and lean like a shadow in the afternoon sun. Blaze, the bobcat, was now a magnificent creature, a tapestry of tawny fur and dark spots, every muscle finely tuned to the rhythm of the wild. He moved through these sprawling natural enclosures of the sanctuary like a phantom, a whisper of a predator, perfectly adapted. The thrill of the hunt sang in his blood, the snap of a twig underfoot, the scent of a scurrying vole. These were his language now, etched deep into his very being. He was fiercely independent, a solitary hunter, and yet, sometimes in the quiet moments between hunts, when the scent of pine was thick and the wind carried the far-off call of a hawk, a memory soft as a moth's wing would brush against the edges of his mind. Not a specific image, but a feeling, a warmth, a gentle pressure, and sometimes in those same moments, a sound would escape him. A low, rumbling vibration in his chest, almost a purr, utterly out of place for a bobcat of his stature. The human observers, the giants who brought the scent of processed meat and the reassuring rattle of keys, had noted it. A lingering gentleness in his eyes, a quiet wisdom that defied his wild, untamed nature. The memory of the capture was a blur of fear and jarring sensations. A sudden sharp sting, then a dizzying weakness. The world had tipped and spun, and the comforting scent of the woods had been replaced by something metallic and strange. Panic had seized him, a primal terror of being contained, of being vulnerable. He remembered thrashing, the rough weave of a net against his fur, the sudden claustrophobia of a dark box. Then the jolt of movement, the vibration of a vehicle, and the alien voices of the giants. He had curled into the smallest ball possible, his heart hammering against his ribs, every nerve screaming for escape. The giants at first were a source of profound fear. Their towering forms, their booming voices, their strange, strong hands. He'd hissed, spat, and lunged, every instinct urging him to fight, to flee. But then came the soft sting of a needle, a brief, burning discomfort, followed by a delicious wave of drowsiness, a warmth that spread through his aching body. The pain in his leg, a dull throb that had plagued him for days, began to recede, replaced by a strange, comforting pressure. Then the taste of cool, clean water, lapped from a shallow bowl after what felt like an eternity of parched throat. The crunch of proper food, real meat, not the meager pickings he'd struggled for in the wild. The gentle touch of a soft cloth, wiping away the grime from his fur, a sensation so foreign, yet not unpleasant. The contrast was stark, the hunger and the constant gnawing fear of the wild replaced by a consistent, quiet benevolence. The giants, though still immense, began to morph in his perception. They were not predators, but providers. Their presence, once terrifying, slowly became synonymous with the cessation of pain. The feeling of a full belly, the soft rustle of fresh straw. Trust, a delicate bloom, began to unfurl in his guarded heart. It was not absolute, for the wild was still in him, but it was there, a recognition that these beings, despite their strangeness, meant him no harm. They were the ones who had fixed the broken leg, who had offered the soft, clean bed. Years passed, seasons turned, painting the landscape in a vibrant hues and then stripping it bare. Blaze, now fully rehabilitated, fully wild yet holding that subtle imprint, faced a particularly brutal winter. The snow fell relentlessly, burying the usual hunting grounds, making every calorie precious, every sheltered spot a matter of survival. Other bobcats struggled, their lean bodies growing thinner, their movements more desperate. But Blaze, in an uncanny display, seemed to possess an almost preternatural ability to find the warmest, most protected nooks. He would seek out hollow logs with thick moss lining or wedge himself into the lee of a massive rock face where the snow rarely settled. It was a survival instinct, yes, honed by the harsh realities of the wild. But observers, those same giants who had first tended to him, wondered if perhaps, subconsciously, the memory of a soft, domestic warmth, a small, purring house cat named Mittens, had taught him something more profound about comfort and finding sanctuary in the coldest of times. The echo of that love, a silent, powerful resonance, seemed to guide him, keeping the bitter cold at bay. The wild and the tame, forever intertwined by an extraordinary rescue and an enduring love. It had been years since the scrawny, terrified Bobcat Kit, then nameless and haunted by hunger, had first glimpsed the world beyond the rusty trap. Now Blaze the bobcat, fully grown and magnificent, moved through the sun-dabbled undergrowth of the preserve with a silent power, a ripple of muscle beneath his spotted coat. His journey from a vulnerable orphan to a symbol of resilience had been long, paved with the gentle hands of giants and the unexpected lessons from a small, purring shadow. His earliest memories were a blur of sharp pains and the overwhelming smell of fear, his own. The world had been a cacophony of terrifying sounds. The snap of metal, the guttural snarls of larger predators, the distant echo of human voices that brought only dread. Then came the ultimate terror, a net descending, the crushing weight of it, the strange, suffocating scent of fabric and disinfectant. He'd thrashed, a small, furious ball of claws and teeth, utterly convinced he was about to meet his end. The prick of a needle had been a searing, brief pain, followed by a dizzying warmth that pulled him down into darkness. Waking had been disorienting, softness beneath him, a strange, clean smell, and the low murmur of those giant voices. His body ached, but the gnawing emptiness in his belly had receded. He remembered a constant, gentle warmth from a different, smaller creature, a rhythmic vibration against his side. That was Mittens the house cat, a beacon of calm in his terrifying new reality. Mittens, with her soft purr and unwavering presence, had taught him that not all giants were threats, and not all touch was pain. He'd watched her, fascinated, as she accepted strokes from Sarah, the kindest of the giants, or her eyes closing in contentment. He mimicked her, tentative at first, then growing to crave the gentle pressure, the soft words. The clean water had tasted like life itself. The small, meaty morsels offered by Sarah's hand, a revelation after days of scrounging. He learned about healing, the sting of the antiseptic spray, the careful application of salve on his scraped paws, the surprisingly comforting pressure of bandages. Each sensation, initially alarming, quickly transformed into a strange kind of relief. Sarah's hands, so large and capable, moved with a tenderness that defied his wild instincts to flee. He'd learned to lean into her touch, to trust the quiet hum of her voice. He learned about play, too, from Mittens chasing a dangling feather, pouncing on a crinkled ball of paper. These were lessons that, in the wild, might have been lost to the struggle for survival. Here, in the shelter of Sarah's care, he was allowed to simply be, to mend, to grow. As he grew stronger, his wild instincts reasserted themselves. He began to stalk imaginary prey, his movements becoming more fluid, more predatory. But even then, there were echoes of his tame past. Sometimes he'd find himself mimicking Mittens' peculiar headbutt against Sarah's leg, a silent demand for attention, or he'd emit a soft, rumbling purr, a sound that no other bobcat would ever make. These strange behaviors, once puzzling even to Sarah, were no longer mysteries but poignant tributes to the small, gentle heart that had taught him how to live and love. His rehabilitation wasn't just about physical recovery. It was about integrating two worlds, the wild and the domestic, into a cohesive, resilient spirit. His release into the vast, protective embrace of the preserve had been a bittersweet day. Sarah had watched him go, tears in her eyes, but a fierce pride in her heart. He had run, truly run, for the first time in his life, feeling the earth beneath his powerful paws, the wind in his whiskers. The scents were sharper, the sounds more defined, the world a vast, exhilarating canvas. He was wild as he was meant to be, but forever marked by kindness. Blaze's life was a testament to the fact that love, even in its most unexpected forms, can heal the deepest wounds and empower a creature to embrace its true destiny. If this video touched your heart, I'd love to hear from you. Just drop a simple comment. Maybe type 1 if you'd welcome more story like this, or 0 if you just want to say you were here, or sharing your thoughts about the video. We'll see you on the next video.